Good afternoon, good evening, good day to wherever you are in this world listening to the Evolving Man podcast. My name is Alan DeMonso, and I'm the host of today's show as well as the founder of the Awakened Man. Do you remember when the dad bod was in fashion for young men? Let's face it, that was a really bad idea. And as men, we need to really take responsibility for what our physique looks like. But where do we start? My guest today is going to share with us his 3-step framework to help us lose weight, improve confidence, and amp up our energy. We're also going to touch into some common mistakes that men make when it comes to fitness, nutrition, and of course, those crazy fad diets. So that's right, gentlemen. Forget keto. There's a much better way for us to look after ourselves. But before we get into that, I want to remind you about our brotherhood. It's the Band of Brothers. This is our community of strong, resilient men, where each man is dedicated to his growth, but also the growth of his brothers. Now, currently, we're on a bit of a hiatus as I'm retooling the program, and I'm really excited to be able to relaunch this in the very near future. But if you're looking for something in the meantime, something to help you take yourself to that next level, where you're raising your standards as a father, a husband, and an entrepreneur, then I encourage you to participate in what I call the Hero's Quest. It's a 90-day mentoring program aimed to raise the level of at least one aspect of your life. Now, you can find all of this as well as some other great free resources at the Awakened Man Training Academy at members, that's plural, members.theawakenedman.net. With all that, let's get on today's show.
Today's man knows who he is, where he stands, and what he aspires to become. Solid in his convictions, owner of his destiny, ever evolving into husbands and fathers our wives and children expect and deserve. We are the masters of our life and the leaders of our homes and community. Welcome to the movement. Stay strong, my brother.
There we go. Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Evolving Man podcast. Well, as you normally know, I like to start off the podcast with asking a couple of questions, or at least getting ourselves set up in the right mindset. So the first one I want to ask you today is, do you struggle with your weight and fitness? And are you tired of all these fad diets, routines out there, and you just want to get the straight goods? Well, I think if you have said yes to either one of those questions today, that you're in for a treat. Because joining me today is Luke Depron. And Luke is a sought-after weight loss coach for busy entrepreneurs and businessmen, as well as a host of a high-performance podcast and the founder of Live Great Lifestyle. I've checked out his website. It's outstanding. And using his extensive training in exercise science kinesiology, combined with strategies learned from network of elite performers, including Navy SEALs, world champion fighters, and a New York Times best-selling authors, and more, he's helped transform the lives of men to Olympic-level athletes. So today he's going to help us high-achieving entrepreneurs lose, you're saying 25%, no, 25 pounds of body fat through the lean body method, so their physiques, energy, and confidence can match the success that they have in business and in life. Welcome, Luke. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for reaching out, and it's good to see you, brother.
Yeah, man, my pleasure, dude. It's awesome to be here. So thank you.
Right on. So how long have you been doing this work with fitness? And tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I've been in this industry now for over 10 years now, which is crazy. So I've done everything from personal training to, worked in rehab studios, doing corrective exercise, performance work with athletes, all the way to, where I am today, working more in the online space and being more of a Sherpa and a mentor for entrepreneurs who are looking to kind of level up their physique, their energy, and their confidence. As far as the background, like most people in this industry, kind of came to it from sport, but realized pretty late in my college career that, man, I hated everything about the accounting classes I was taking, and decided to switch gears to kinesiology. And then from there, it kind of grew from that.
Right on. And so what are you finding right now is when you're working with men, and you kind of touch on it being busy, high achieving entrepreneurs, but really what are you finding the main reason that's preventing us average everyday Joes from really taking care of our bodies and taking care of ourselves?
So there's a couple things. The first is The first, I think, is we have to adopt obviously a mindset where there's a need and a desire, right? Like we have to come to terms with like, hey, this is a problem for me, and I'm gonna seek out a solution, because ultimately there are quite a few people who haven't recognized that like they are lacking energy, or again, their physique isn't a problem, which that's great. So it first starts with this recognition. And then where the pitfall kind of happens for a lot of the guys that I work with, this again, high performance entrepreneurs, these business guys, they're super driven, and they'll oftentimes take a plan that looks more like a product launch approach versus a business plan approach, to put it in some terms that would kind of make sense for, again, these entrepreneurs and business owners. And there's no short-term fixes, but there's no short of people selling you a short-term fix. So it's really trying to navigate that landscape and help them find something that actually is going to fit into their lifestyle and actually is going to work. Because if you are a business owner, man, it's not the same as having a 9 to 5. The schedule is going to change. You might have to fly for a pitch. And so having some flexibility and some tools and tactics to navigate those pieces is really going to be crucial to having the long-term success.
Yeah, that makes total sense, right? It's like anything else in life. We have to find the time and fit it into our routines, right? It's no different than getting up and brushing your teeth every day. It's just we tend to make excuses, and I'm saying that as speaking from the choir, as it's always been a struggle to stay consistent with it. I have periods where I'm right on it, like it's the thing, and then there are periods where it doesn't happen, right? Other things seem to be more important.
And so there will always be, and this is important too, there is seasons in life, and there's going to be seasons within your fitness landscape. But the reality is, as long as we always fall back to what I talk about with my clients is our minimum guaranteed standards. And over time, we can obviously increase what these standards are. But if we do that, we can navigate those seasons, meaning, business is just going nuts in a positive way, right? Like you got all sorts of new customers and it's growing, and man, things seem chaotic. Well, okay, maybe you're not going to be able to get as many workouts in. Great. You do some home gym stuff. You don't even go to the gym. And a lot of my clients will actually use those tactics. And again, as long as we have these standards to fall back on, say nutritionally or in some of our movement pieces, we can kind of hold the line until things maybe settle, business calms down, we get some business practices in line, and you have a little bit more bandwidth to then, take and level up the fitness a bit. But the key is never falling off to this place where there's problems.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, it sounds like what you're really talking about is taking responsibility as leaders, as men. And that's one of the things that I talk about with my group of guys. Then when we get into things, I really speak about taking responsibility for 3 areas: for who we are, for where we are, and where we're going, or what we aspire to be. And so, brother, you're in the same mindset as I am. So tell me a little bit more about what that looks like for you when you talk about taking responsibility for, as a leader and as a man, to stay healthy and fit.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that this, our physical body, it is the vehicle that's taking us through this experience of life. So again, whether you're going to be a father or whether, again, you are, the owner of your business, it's like people are looking at you and they're looking at you physically. So do you show up with energy? Are you the guy who, at 4:00, you're dragging ass and people are taking note? So it's not that we all are a brand, but we all are a bit of a reflection of, what we're doing with our time and what we're valuing. So this isn't to shame anyone who's not in shape, but it's quite indicative of somebody who, it's like, man, if you're not healthy, it's like, you're going to be low on energy. You don't see as many things through. It definitely highlights some inconsistencies. And, I always like to bring this story up with a buddy of mine who was on the podcast. And, he lost 150 pounds. And he's a guy who he had struggled with his weight his entire life, but the turning point was he was at the park with his kid, and he went to chase after his kid, and he felt his heart flutter. And that moment in time, he recognized, I have to be here for my son. I have to be here as a provider for my wife. And that was the instant change for him to start the quest. And it was quite the path, obviously, to lose 150 pounds. So again, when we don't have that deep, what I call the big why, the deep burning desire of why we're going to make these substantial changes, it will be tough. But when you can tether it to the idea of, again, you being how you're showing up as a guy, how you're showing up as a leader, a father, as an owner of your business, if you can tie that to that, it becomes much easier. You're going to have this big internal drive because you realize it's really tethered to the things that you actually care about most.
Absolutely. And as I'm a little bit older guy there. I'm just in my 50s, I guess I'm stretching a little bit. 55. Okay. I said it, double nickels this year. And so, as we get a little bit older, sometimes the parts of our body don't always work like they did when we were in our 20s and 30s. Right. And so, what kind of work and how do you help men who are a little bit older than my age range, or maybe even a little bit older? How do you help them, stay fit and get that confidence back that they had when they were in their 20s and 30s?
Yeah. And, here's the great thing for anybody listening to this. With today's tech, today's medicine, the regenerative stuff, we're going to live a long time. And, 55 is not what it was, I think, probably 20 years ago. I was out hiking in Zion National Park probably 2 months ago, and did a sunrise hike. We raced up to the main delicate arch to catch sunrise, and we're up there, and here comes this couple, probably in their 90s. And they just got up there right after the sun came up. And I thought, heck yeah, like that's the guy I want to be. Like, I want to have these experiences of life. And so obviously as we get older, some things do change. Testosterone levels are going to be something that probably, may want to be looked at. Obviously dietarily, sleep habits, these things can improve that. Of course, talk to your doctor if you're getting into that realm. But as far as the mechanics of exercise, it can continue to look very much the same. Nothing has to really be reinvented. We're talking specifically, like say strength training. We're all going to do very similar things. Obviously, as you get older, reducing some loads, trying to set up, a personal record on a back squat when you're 60 probably doesn't make sense, but man, you still squat up and down because you got to get up and out of chairs. So a lot of it can still actually be really foundational, strength training stuff that by no means is out of anybody's wheelhouse.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Now you also talk about a 3-step framework, right? It helps for weight loss, but it's also going to help with building confidence and energy. Tell us a little bit about this framework that you've developed.
Sure. Yeah. So this is, basically what I take my clients through, and there's really 3 phases to it. It's the build phase. So we do have to actually build muscle. That is the goal. And again, as we're older at 55, 60, sarcopenia is real. And this is the breakdown of muscle fiber. So we do want to have a build phase where we're going to install just foundational lifting patterns that are going to back up, everyday movement patterns, stimulate the muscle fiber. And this really becomes the foundation of what the workouts are. And this can be honestly like 3 to 5 workouts a week. Again, you don't even have to go to a gym. If you want to do a home gym, you get a few specific pieces. And then we have the fuel phase. We have to optimize the nutrition that we're taking in. Again, specifically, if we are having a weight loss goal, we are going to need to create a calorie deficit to do that. But there's going to be some ways to make that maybe easier for us, so we're not miserable in this phase. Yeah. It feels like something that we can actually do, and most importantly, foods that we actually enjoy. And this is a crux of it, man. So many guys go in, they try to do some unrealistic diet. They absolutely hate it. And it's like a built-in excuse to quit. Yeah. Where in the fuel phase, we want to actually focus on installing some nutritional habits that we actually enjoy that we can see through. Cool. And then the last piece is just the move phase. And this is really just trying to elevate our actual daily movement. Now we can do this a number of ways. You can do it cardio. If you want to call it cardio and go get on a treadmill and plod along doing something that you probably hate, well, that's an option. Or we can try to install movement into our life. And there's a million different ways to cut this. It can be playing with the kids. It can be doing hobbies on the weekend. It could be as, if this is what it takes, and I've had clients that have had to use this. If you're a day trader or you're a coder and you're at your desk 10 hours a day, guess what? Time to spend about $3,000 and buy a little square treadmill that allows you to walk at about 2 miles per hour and just shuffle your feet while you're walking throughout the day. So we do have to systematically bring up the movement of our life from a caloric standpoint. And then I won't dork out too much on some of the fascial stuff and getting some fluids moving through our body. Yeah. But we absolutely have to bring up the daily movement.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds perfect, right? And you're absolutely right. Just lots of our work now has become very sedentary, right? We're sitting in our chairs. Even though I work in my previous career in hospitality, I spent way more time on my feet when I was in the action, running around managing hotels, than I was as I went up the corporate ladder and found that, my ass got flatter because I was sitting on it more. So it's a different mindset today, that how we can become so sedentary, not realize, man, I just sat down for 3 hours and I haven't moved. right?
That's actually, believe it or not, that's one of the more challenging pieces that I deal with, because people they don't recognize the incongruency that is. And you really have to come to terms with the human body, man. We are a dynamic animal, and we are not built to just sit at a desk. And again, I will save the physiological discussion of what happens as far as hip flexors getting tight, glute function going down, postural issues. The reality is we are just not meant to sit. So, a common thing that I recommend to people, because you're going to do it at times. I'm doing it right now, even though I have a stand-up desk right here, but I decided to sit right now while we have this conversation. Yeah. And just try to pick and choose when you can stand and move. And, there's going to be some things that you absolutely need to be head down on. Maybe you're writing, maybe you're, again, working on some business proposal, cranking emails, and you need to sit for that. Then there's going to be other times that maybe you could do this activity standing. And a great example is, hey, if you're on the phone, it's like we all have headphones now. And it's like, pop your headphones in and pace around in your room. You're probably going to show up to that call even more energized, a little bit more like from a powerful state. And so pick and choose your battles as far as when you're going to sit. You don't actually need to stand for 10 hours either, because then you're going to have your own feet and back issues. But you have to absolutely break the cycle of sitting.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Totally agree. It's funny you said that. Just earlier on this morning, I spent most of the morning standing, doing some work, banged out a couple articles that I needed to get out for my group this month. And then for this particular interview, I felt, well, I'm going to sit down and just take it easy from this standpoint for the next half hour, 40 minutes. But you're totally right. It's so easy for us the simple little things. It's not like you're asking us to, totally change everything we're doing. It is a challenge for our habits. But I think it's important nuances that the guys are picking up here when they're listening to this. Now you talk also, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and if you need to to quantify this, again, step counts are just a really easy place to start. Obviously the 10,000 steps gets thrown around and it's probably a decent target. But ultimately just quantify where are you at. It can be done on almost any cell phone at this point, and then go from there, right? Like you don't double it overnight. You don't have to go walk 10,000 steps if you're walking 1,000, but check where you're at, and then let's get to increasing. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I think you mentioned also it's about getting that calorie deficit. Probably just as important, if not more, to be managing that side of the equation more so than whether or not you got 10,000 steps. Hey man, are you still eating 3,500 calories today? Because guess what? You're going to have to work out pretty hard to burn anything off.
Yep. And this is where these things really do happen synergistically. I mean, if we, again, do good resistance training, if we can get the nutrition in order and we get the movement up, at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like this vast, really intense thing that you did. I often tell people, particularly when it comes to diet, it's like, if you were to lose 20, 30 pounds and somebody were to see you, they'd be like, oh my gosh, what did you do? And they're expecting this radical plan that you were on, when really it's like, I just did a few different things really well and it kind of happened. And it wasn't this massive, like, yeah, I'm like training like The Rock. I don't go out to dinner anymore. I spend no time with my family because I'm at the gym. Like, that's not what this has to be. And at the end of the day, those three phases, they all have to happen for it to really come together.
Yeah. That's so great for you to say that too, right? Because a lot of times as guys, we do have that mindset, right? Wow, if I can't do it like The Rock, then I'm not going to do it. And we have this all or nothing type of mentality. I see that so often, and not just in this area, but in lots of areas of our life. Like, we won't even start something because we don't, we need to do it perfect, or we need to do it like, all out. And really, realistically, it's baby steps, man. Like, it's just small steps and driving consistency. And that sounds like what you're talking about.
I run into that quite a bit. And again, I call it like the entrepreneur's dilemma, and why I like working with a lot of business guys, and they're extremely passionate and they're driven. And I hear it all the time, like, man, well, I'm an all in, all out guy. And I'm like, but you're not, because it's not working for you. And again, this comes back to that analogy of, you can't treat this as a product launch. You have to treat it as a business plan. This is a long-term process. So, trying to just go 0 to 100, it's not actually going to get you there any faster. There's some physiological stuff at play here. The best analogy I've probably heard was, if a cake bakes at 350, turning it up to 600 doesn't get it done faster. It's like there are just some physiological norms that are going to take place as far as when weight loss happens. And again, most of this can all fit within the scope of even probably the most busiest of life.
Yeah, totally true, man. So tell me a little bit more about how you like to use physical challenges to help build resiliency, confidence, and really help push us out of our comfort zones.
Yeah. So this is a great, obviously most guys are going to come to me with a physique goal. That's like the doorway that, someone's going to reach out again. Hey, I like, my energy's low. I just don't feel as good. Like I'm 20, 30 pounds overweight. Like my wife's not looking at me the same. Right. And like, these are the external, kind of drivers that usually, inquire an email or a phone call to me. But ultimately, man, what ends up happening and what really excites and lights me up doing this work is, yeah, I'm excited to have you lose 20 or 30 pounds, right? But what's much more fulfilling is how then you show up as a guy and the energy that you bring to whatever it is that you're passionate about. Hopefully your marriage, hopefully your business, but really whatever that is that you're into, when you show up with more energy, more confidence, and you just feel better, everything's clicking. And it happens quite routinely that guys start to realize, man, a lot of the value in doing this is the physical challenge component, because there's a lot of growth that comes from that. And I often say physical challenges are like the simplest way to prove that a growth mindset is real. You do a physically challenging task that you don't know if you can do, that seems past your limit, and then you do it. And this could be something as simple as literally within the lift of an exercise, right? Like you're doing a split squat and man, you were using 20-pound dumbbells. Now you're using 30 and you don't know if you can do this. And all of a sudden you exceed your capacity. And it's like, there is growth right there in that moment. And once you've done that, and once you've gotten into this, you can really then start to leverage fitness into some more, what I'll call the extracurriculars. Again, we have this baseline we have to maintain, but now you can kind of get into some of the wacky stuff. And I've had guys who, like, had a client who he had done 100-mile race, 100-mile bike ride in his life. And he decided he was going to do I think it was like 350 or 400 miles on this 3-day trip. And, he's obviously like nervous about it. He's never done this, and boom, goes and knocks it out of the park. And he's like, yeah, that wasn't even that big of a deal. And now he's racing off-road electric mountain bikes, and he's on a team. And it's like, it's such a cool thing and such an easy tool at our disposal to show that we have more in the tank using our physical bodies. And a really easy one, because there's a little bit more risk when we're talking this stuff, when we're trying to set, and exceed physical capabilities. But man, like rucking and hiking are a great tool. You find that point of exhaustion. Maybe you got 40 pounds in your pack and you're wondering if you can go further. Can you go longer? And boom, you do it. And there is growth in that moment that is really, truly transformational.
That's awesome. Totally awesome, man. That wasn't Goggins who was your client, was it?
No, I mean, he's a great example. I've been jamming out to him lately, and I will. I always say this. I obviously I have mixed feelings on. He is a massive inspiration as far as showing there's this unlimited physical potential, but of course that does come with some consequences. And he's a guy who's obviously now paying for some of those challenges. And so, that's when I said, like, rucking, I think, is a good strategy to get there, where it's like weighted hiking, because we do want to be respectful to soft tissue and to joint health. Because if we do want to be that 90-year-old who's at that end of that hike, who's out with the grandkids, it really is about building up the system and not breaking it down. So that is a delicate line. I too struggle with this. I do jujitsu. I've, torn an ACL training MMA years ago, and I've torn some stuff doing jujitsu. And so that's a delicate line to walk, but there are some safe ways to really expand what you think you're capable of by using the physical.
Absolutely. And I think it's all about the mindset, right? That's really what you're trying to get across here, is that when we have this fixed mindset that I can't do anymore, I can't lift one more, do one more rep. It's not about that. It's not about trying to do 50 more. Can I just do one more? And then the next day, and one of the books of the month this year we touched on at my group was Atomic Habits, and it was all about, those small incremental, whatever the step was, make it smaller yet. Make it smaller yet to see the growth. We don't have to be animals and try to, take it all on in one bite, right?
That's a great point. And I mean, I can't tell you again how many guys that I'll start working with, and it's like, all right, man. So like, this will be the line of question. And it's, so how many days can you dedicate realistically with your schedule to exercise, like to formal exercise? And I can't tell you how many people have been like, oh yeah, I mean, 7 days, I could go every day. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's great. So my follow-up question always is then, how did that work out last time you did that? Oh yeah, no, I couldn't keep it up. I quit, blah, 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 blah. So, if you're thinking of starting something right now, it's like, hey, cut it in half. If your goal is to go to the gym 5 times this week, do 2, start there. Prove, get some confidence through competence by showing that you can actually do this. Where unfortunately, I feel like most men go the other way. And I'm a victim of this in other avenues of my life where, again, we bite off too big of what we can chew. And now instead of building that muscle that, oh, I think I can, we're actually reinforcing that we can't do this. So with every failed attempt, we kind of start to, I think, wear that as a badge of, oh, I really am just overweight, or yep, I can't stick to a diet. And it's like, well, you can, if we make one that's realistic, and then we grow from there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love that phrase you just had, competence into confidence, I think makes so much sense. So you're really starting to touch on a little bit of the mistakes that you see, throughout this whole fitness, nutrition, this whole world that's out there. And so tell us a little bit about some of the common mistakes that you're seeing and what you're doing to, the cure, I'll call it the cure, the antidote to help guys get back on track.
Yeah. So and I shouldn't even call it so much a mistake, but I think one thing, if you're a guy listening to this and you're like, man, all right, I'm dead, I'm ready to make some changes. You got to really watch out for the marketing. The marketing of so-called solutions to, say, like a weight loss problem, man, it can be good. And whether it's thinking that keto is something special or that this supplement is something special, if you're looking for a specific thing as the, one size fits all fix, right there, massive red flag. Again, I have a coaching philosophy that I use, right? Like I've bundled up my knowledge and experience and how I've taken people through this journey. But within that, there's lots of flexibility and frameworks that have to be used unique to you. But if you're looking at something and it is like, man, this specific thing is what you're missing, massive red flag. As far as other common mistakes, like I see people punting and doing way too much or leveraging way too much cardio. Again, the overtraining side, that's just not going to be sustainable. And then I think the nutrition piece gets really chaotic for people. Again, under the illusion that, say, keto is doing something special, when at the end of the day, total energy balance, meaning calories in, calories out, will be the fundamental truth of losing or gaining weight. There's factors that impact that, but thinking that you're going to eat something specific to cause you to lose weight, not going to happen. Not a chance.
Yeah, for sure. And if you can see any results, it's going to be pretty short term. I know my wife and I have done enough our fair share of, fad diets, whatever you want to call them. And while you see some results in the first few weeks, it doesn't take long when you're back to normal eating, right? Then we're back to things are just the way they were before. So it's totally true, right? It is a total package of how we're managing our total nutrition piece.
And it doesn't have to be as extreme as I think most people make it. So again, here would be another, I think, kind of mistake I see is a lot of the delivery of health and fitness information is coming from people who are bodybuilders and fitness models, and or say like you're a professional Instagrammer at this point where you have sponsored posts that are, you're making $10,000-$20,000 a month being a quote unquote fitness professional. That guy's lifestyle is not on par with yours. So you need to take a step back and think, okay, maybe there's some great stuff I can take from here, but recognize like you don't have to do that to probably get where you want. There's going to be tactics and strategies of, again, making some just foundational shifts in your life work for you, and not trying to adopt, again, some bodybuilder's lifestyle where, like I always tell people, if I said, all right, you're going to go to the gym every day at 6 a.m. and I get you all hyped up on doing that, and then I check in with you then the following week and you say, how many workouts did you do? And you're like, none. I'm like, well, what happened? You're like, well, actually, I have to take my kid at 6. And it's like, well, that's not going to work for you. Again, right. Same thing nutritionally. Like, what are some foods that you actually like? Let's focus on those. So really taking a step back and making sure that the strategy that you're taking can fit you and it can fit you for the long haul. So that 21-day jumpstart challenge you're thinking about starting, forget that. What can you do for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year? Because guess what? Either way, that time is coming.
Yeah, no kidding. It's going to be here whether you want it to come or not. So we need to make better choices with it for sure. Now you kind of touched a little bit on, I think, on some of the mistakes with exercise. It sounded a little bit maybe we're overdoing it with cardio. But what else are you finding from in general speaking with when we look at exercise? What are some mistakes or things that we should be more aware of as we're looking to get fit?
Sure. So I would say the big one that I see with exercise is actually, and I'll try to do my best to explain this because this is a little challenging in a way, but once somebody feels it, they'll really experience it. Most people turn movement into exercise, or they turn exercise into movement. And what I mean by this is your body is going to have this innate ability to find the path of least resistance on every single exercise. And I'll just give you I'm going to give you a visual here of, if you were to drop down and do a push-up, you could probably do more push-ups if you actually elevated your shoulders towards your ears and flared your elbows out. And you'll notice this is actually what will start to happen when you get tired and you can't do another one. You'll kind of naturally go to this position. And so what I see a lot of guys fall victim to is thinking that they're trying to constantly do more, and they just think more reps are better. And it's not that we are after doing more over time, but we're trying to do it under specific tension. And this could be all the way down to like your arch collapses, your pelvis shifts. And there's all these just little postural changes. And it is your body is just trying to find the path of least resistance to make an exercise feel easier, which would allow you to do more. And unfortunately, many guys will go into a workout and they'll actually chase that sensation, because by doing more, you're moving your body, you start to get hot, sweaty, and tired. And it feels like you got a really good workout, when really all you did was kind of move around. And it's like, just go play basketball, like go do something that's more fun. When we're actually doing more strict resistance training, you got to flip it in your head to where the goal is to make it as challenging as possible with every single repetition, so you actually can do as little as possible and then progress from there. So just keep in mind, you can do way more of every single exercise. You can do more wrong than you can right.
Yeah, for sure. I remember an old friend of mine. He's no longer with us, but he used to say he was a gym rat, and he used to say it was form over power, right? And so the few times I would, hey, come on, Al, come out to the gym with me, and he took care of himself and was in great shape, and like 10 years my senior. And I always be like that. Take a little bit more off. Take form over power. Forget it. If you're not going to do it right, you're not getting the benefit out of the actual exercise. So it's great to hear that's a true mantra.
Yeah, and a way I kind of would tell people that you can approach it when you're actually doing something, and the same thing holds true for, say, doing some mobility work or stretching. Your body doesn't necessarily like that tension, so it finds very easy ways to get out of it. And it actually makes you feel like, wow, look at me, I'm stretching even further. And it's like, but are you feeling that stretch anymore? So like a great example would be if you did a straight leg hamstring stretch and you'd be feeling a big pull on your hamstring, but if you just slightly bend your knee, man, you can go so much further, and it makes you feel like you've gone further, but there's no stretch there. So when you're exercising, the goal is to chase tension. And like truly you're trying to turn on that muscle fiber. And there's this neuromuscular connection where, like, with your mind, can you feel that tension? So something I will cue people with, which is try to contract the muscle to do the movement. Don't do the movement to contract the muscle. And when you make that flip in your mind, all of a sudden the exercise that you do becomes really impactful, and you'll find, wow, I just don't have to do as much. So I could personally myself go to a workout and maybe do 4 good exercises and really stimulate a ton of tissue and be done. Or I could go in and cheat through some things and maybe make it even look okay, but it would allow me to do a lot more. And all of a sudden it's like, man, I could be in there for a really long time, but that's just not as effective, and it's not as time efficient either.
Yeah, there you go. Which also ultimately leads to, well, now I'm not going to go, so because it takes too much time. And totally that just, wow, I just heard my own voice there just come out. Whoops. So,
and the time one, man, that's a big one. And again, particularly with the guys that I work with. And here's the reality. It's like, do a home gym, right? Like for the last 5 years, funny enough, I just got a gym membership about 2 months ago. Everybody would assume like, oh, you're always in the gym. And it's like, man, I've done that for years. And for the last 5 years, I've had a home gym. I live in sunny San Diego. I work out on my deck. Now I have a pretty, good assortment of equipment that I've acquired over the years, but man, you could have a lot done. And oftentimes in the amount of time that you would take going to the gym, putzing around and then driving back, you could have done your workout. Then you could be right back to the work day or whatever it is that you're doing. So there's always going to be a way to navigate the time piece, particularly when you recognize that by feeling better, you are going to operate better. You're going to be more efficient with the time that you then have.
Yeah, it makes total sense, man. Well, this has been outstanding, Luke. Thank you so much for coming by today. If somebody wanted to reach out and get a hold of you, how would they go about doing that, and how would they get anything you've got coming up in the near future that they could jump in and participate as well?
Sure. Easiest way to get in touch with me is livegreatlifestyle.com. If you do need some support, I actually do have a free guide that breaks down this in a little bit more detail, breaks down those three phases, and should save some people some trouble. They can grab that at livegreatlifestyle.com.
Excellent. Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a great pleasure, and live strong and live with passion, brother.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Right on. What a great interview I had with Luke Depron just a few weeks back. And when we started to get into our fitness and our physiques and all the misinformation and the sneaky marketing tactics that are used to convince us that this is the way to go. And we realized that when we do fall into that trap, we end up by doing ourselves a disservice, don't we? We end up by getting ourselves way off track and not really accomplishing the goals we want to for our life, which is why we end up by having less energy. We start to feel down about ourselves. Now, if you really want to go deeper into that work, then I highly recommend that you check out Luke's podcast, his website, and some of his programs. I'm sure it's going to make a world of difference for you. Now, if you're also interested in raising other levels of your life because you've found a newfound energy, then I highly recommend that you check out the Awakened Man community. See, we are a group of men, a brotherhood actually, of men who are interested not only in raising our lives, but raising the lives of our families, friends, and the brothers within our community. And so if you're not really sure if the Awakened Man format is for you, then I'm offering a free 30-minute consultation for those men who are interested in exploring just a little bit more of what it would take to be committed to raising the level of their life. So remember, men that work well with me have 3 things that they need to be committed to changing and taking responsibility for. The first thing is they need to take responsibility for where they are in their life. The second thing they take responsibility for is who they are as men. And the third thing that they ultimately take responsibility for is where they're going or what they aspire to be. When we take control and take responsibility for those areas, those are the men that flourish within our community. If that sounds like somebody like you, then I expect to get a call, book an appointment, at least see you within our community at least once. Take care, gentlemen. Live with passion and purpose. Aho.
Thank you for listening to the Evolving Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is the Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.